Hello and welcome to today's Learn at Lunchtime program from the State Museum of Pennsylvania. I am Beth Erickson. Our topic today is Middle Creek's spring waterfowl migration, and with us is Brant Portner, an environmental education specialist for the Pennsylvania Game Commission at the Middle Creek Wildlife Management Area. Hello, and thank you for joining us today.
Of course, thanks for the opportunity to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience working at Middle Creek Wildlife Management Area.
Sure thing. So I've been here for about a year and a half now. So my job title, that environmental education specialist, typically we're working with school groups. But since there's a small group of us here and a lot going on at all times, we get to do all sorts of different things, whether it's prescribed fire or banding ducks or putting together our own speaker series and other public events. It's something different a little every day.
That sounds pretty exciting. It allows you to be busy all the time and a lot of great opportunities. So what's going on at Middle Creek today? Are there any birds?
Sure. So today's a rainy day, which is nice sometimes because we typically have big crowds here this time of year. And like you said, there's a lot of different things going on. It gets pretty busy. So a rainy day means there's less people and I get to catch up on some things on my computer, but there's still people here in the visitor center, which is indoors, and there's definitely birds here. So sometimes in the morning, those really rainy mornings, they don't fly off to go feed in the fields as early as they do on a nice clear day. So yeah, coming in this morning, there's plenty of birds here on the lake.
Well, I know our audience is excited to see more and hear more about Middle Creek. So Brant, when you are ready, you can begin.
So yeah, we're going to be talking about the snow goose migration today, but this kind of lumps in with a lot of other migrants that are coming through, specifically waterfowl. So of course, we're here at Middle Creek Wildlife Management Area. I'll show some maps later, sort of specifically where we're located. It's generally on the border of Lancaster and Lebanon County, and we're owned and operated by the Pennsylvania Game Commission. I can talk a bit about our history a bit later here too. So this is a shot above our visitor center, what we call the conservation trail. And before I get into sort of migration, this shot I think illustrates really well why we have a lot of wildlife to offer here. So I always say diverse habitat always results in diverse wildlife. You can see we have a lot of fields here, grasslands, wildflowers. That's going to result in a lot of those grassland species. Some areas are sort of what we call early successional or not really forests like you see up here on the mountains, but sort of shrubby or small trees growing. And we have a lot of water structures. So we have the main lake that's located here. We even have some islands on it, and then some other impoundments such as ponds and wetlands across the property. So that diversity in wildlife habitat, again, sort of just translates to a lot of the diverse wildlife we have here. There's always something unique every time of year. But the big attractant for Middle Creek, of course, this time of year, we're right in the middle of it, are the snow geese. So you can see a funny picture here. A lot of snow geese flying over people at down near Willow Point, and it gets pretty loud. You can see the kids covering their ears, and even an employee here covering their ears as they all fly overhead. Just don't look up with your mouth open. That's my advice. So we have the greater snow goose here, and this is complicated when you talk about a lot of different species that have big distributions or populations across a large area. So we have the greater snow goose here. This is a subspecies compared to the lesser snow goose, and essentially that's kind of isolated to two different areas. They are all across the United States and North America, but our more eastern population is considered the greater snow goose. It is one of our most abundant waterfowl species. We've had a lot of good things happen in terms of wetland preservation and restoration and the recovery of waterfowl species since things like the Clean Water Act and a lot of bills that help preserve wetlands and conserve them. This is a species that breeds all the way up in the Arctic, and I will illustrate this in a map later. It's really kind of hard to comprehend how far north they truly go, and that's in their spring northward migration. They're very voracious feeders. They cause a lot of damage, especially since they have a larger population in their sort of breeding range up north where they're nesting, but also as they're migrating. So even farm fields around here, they will cover farm fields, which I'm sure many people on this webinar have probably witnessed before. And they feed on different things that may damage those crops or damage the landscape where they're feeding on. However, I always like to say they do provide a lot of fertilizer while they're there. They are a game species, which means they can be hunted. So it's kind of a way to help control their population. Hunters play a major role in that with a lot of different game species, and snow geese being very highly populated or even overpopulated, it's a good method to sort of control them. And, hunters are using them for food and other things. They are fast flyers. A lot of people don't understand that when they're at what I like to call cruising altitude, higher up in the air, you see these birds fly pretty high up sometimes. That can be up to 50 miles an hour. And like a lot of other species of birds, they have lifelong pair bonds. Families will travel together when they're migrating, and they can be in pretty large flocks, more than 1,000. When they're here at Middle Creek, they sort of take off at dawn and come back at dusk in those real big groups, but they might disperse a little as they go further away from where they're roosting overnight. Here's just an overview of the flyways in general in North America. So we have the Atlantic flyway that sort of comes up the coast here and goes into Canada. We have the Mississippi flyway that is sort of the Mississippi Delta and follows the river northward, Central flyway, and then the Pacific flyway that's sometimes sort of divided by the Rocky Mountains, but you can see there's quite a bit of overlap here too. And that results sometimes in that speciation or subspecies over a very long period of time, if you have certain ones only migrating in certain flyways. So the fall versus spring migration is actually different. So sometimes people actually get upset why there's not snow geese here in the fall, or they can't understand why they're not here, or they've come to watch them. But that's because they have two different routes. So in the fall, they're actually coming down more along the eastern coast, and I'll show you in another map where they're wintering. And in the spring, they're moving more overland. So that's why there's that discrepancy, why you don't see them in the fall time. They're moving south, they're just going in a different area. So that wintering season can even go down into northern North Carolina, but is generally sort of around the Chesapeake Bay area, and that goes very far north. So we do little estimates, and we actually did one this morning, how many birds here were at Middle Creek. So the numbers are, and this is the most recent up-to-date stuff, so you're all very informed now. 58,000 approximately for snow geese. Tundra swans are 175, and Canada geese about 2,250. Now you may ask, well, how the heck do you count that number? No, we do not go out there and count every single bird. I would not be able to be here for this presentation right now. I'd still be out there counting. What happens is in the morning, and you can see ice here in this photo with maybe some open water, especially in the background. But in the mornings, now that we have open water, these snow geese are sort of concentrated in one big, I guess you could call it a circle almost. And what we do is we go up on a hill that sort of looks over this area where they're roosting, and we use a spotting scope to count every single bird in a certain area. So looking through that spotting scope, you can count every single one that's in that sort of visualization you're getting. Now, assuming they're evenly distributed, so there's kind of, in this photo, there's an even band sort of in the upper part of this photo. I would say if you count every single bird in a certain area, you can multiply or replicate that over that area. But that is not representative of what's maybe at the top of the photo or at the bottom. So you have to be careful, and which is why we do it at before sunrise when they're roosting. You get that sort of even distribution. So we're making an estimate based on what we're counting. So this is the general pattern here for migration and overwintering and breeding for the snow geese. You can see there are these different flyways utilized. They're moving through what you could sort of refer to as bottlenecks. So here at the Atlantic flyway, they're on the coast, open waters, or in the Chesapeake Bay. They're coming down more along the coast, but when they move up, it's more overland. So they're kind of going to the next major stopover for them from Middle Creek, if they do stop at Middle Creek, is sort of the Finger Lakes area in New York, and the Hudson River, and up from there. So when I talk about this area that they're breeding, the Arctic Circle, it's very far up there. It's almost as far north as land possibly exists. So another reason to really call them snow geese. They're going very far north. And there's more western and central populations. They will even go further into Mexico for their winter grounds. So we do track this, or not so much the Game Commission, but there's a university in Canada that still does this. You can see here that if you see them having neck bands, they actually have these yellow neck bands on them with numbers, not like a more traditional leg metal band that a lot of birds get. But from time to time, you'll see them here at Middle Creek. And by looking at these reports, they have an idea of sort of where they are at different times of year. And you can see a certificate here for our previous educator, Bert Myers, who recorded one. So these wintering grounds are sort of down here in the Chesapeake Bay area into northern North Carolina. And then they're moving up into Middle Creek. So you can see that right here in central Pennsylvania, and then up into the Finger Lakes area, and then northward on to Canada. So that's just a unique way for us to see that. We don't use tracking devices. There's some more modern technology. Modus is an example where it's sort of radio towers picking stuff up, or having antennas on top of buildings almost in live time. And basically there's a little miniature backpack that these birds wear that get picked up by those towers. That can give you more accurate information with technology always changing. So now the tundra swan migration. A lot of people have their favorite bird. They might prefer to see tundra swans here more than snow geese. Tundra swans are really cool. Our native swan we have here in Pennsylvania. Some other ones you might see are mute swans. Mute swans will have an orange beak on it. They are not native to North America. They're actually from Europe. You might be more familiar with them sort of on like farm ponds. These are large birds, wingspans greater than 5 feet. They breed in the tundra as well, and they're protected. They are not a game species in Pennsylvania. They have much lower populations, and they generally have lower numbers than snow geese here at Middle Creek. Sometimes there might be a few more in the dead of winter when there's ice in the water, but now that the water's open, the snow geese rule the area. And like I said earlier, there's only 175 here right now, so a much smaller number. They are strong flyers as well, similar speed of 50 miles an hour, lifelong pair bonds, and their young are called cygnets. So there's your fun word of the day for wildlife. Now looking at their migration map, it's a little different, but there's some generalizations that can be the same. The generalizations are they still have that southward movement. They're moving overland through central Pennsylvania, but more sort of Ohio River Valley. But they're also wintering along the coast here. And that breeding range is maybe a little further south, but still up above the Arctic Circle and also coastal Alaska. And you can have sort of separate populations as well. More of the Pacific flyway there and the Atlantic. Now, people often ask, how are these birds different? And this is important for hunters as well. Most people out in the field can pick this up pretty quickly. Here's just some pictures comparing from below, which is when you're generally seeing them flying, unless you're in a plane. We have the snow geese here on the left. So I'm going to take a minute here just to have everyone look at these. Some differences you see between them, and I'm going to show some size comparisons as well. So right away, you see the wingtips, the black wingtips on the snow geese. You can see the black beaks on the tundra swans versus the orange beaks of the snow geese. And sort of they have almost a flatter plane or a level wingspan here, where sometimes these snow geese, when they're flying, their wings will almost look like they're going forward just a bit or have more of a curve to it. Of course, the size differences are very stark. So here's a picture of some flying side by side. And what I think is funny is some of these tundra swans are actually in the background and still look larger than the snow geese that are more in the foreground. And usually that forced perspective is the opposite. So something that's a little closer looks a lot larger. But these tundra swans are just so large that the snow geese still look pretty small, even though some of them might be in front of them. So again, you can see those black feet, black beaks, larger wingspans, and then those black wingtips and orange feet, orange beaks in comparison. Just different. Obviously, the neck of the tundra swan is probably almost like half the size of the snow geese in some of these situations. All right, so that's the general sort of highlight of Middle Creek, why everyone wants to come here and see those birds. But there's a lot of other stuff to see as well throughout the year, but also during migration. So we have a ruddy duck here, really cool with their blue bill. Common mergansers, which the females look really neat because they sort of look like they have a bad hair day, spiky hair in the back. mallards, and Canada geese, which are both really common these days, were less so common back before a lot of those legal protections, Migratory Bird Act and others were put in place. But we do have them here at Middle Creek as well, pretty common. We have nesting structures for some of these, and they're game species. But not just waterfowl, and not just in the early spring, but all throughout the year and other species. We have a lot of other stuff here that's really unique. We have a lot of threatened endangered species, and that's because we have this, again, unique habitat and very uncommon habitat. A lot of these native grasslands are uncommon throughout the state. Either they become developed or they sort of slowly turn into forests and they're not maintained. Forests play an important role and are important here in Pennsylvania. The sort of these open grasslands and areas, what we have, where we call forbs or flowering plants and shrubs and other stuff like that, are common here at Middle Creek and not so much elsewhere. So we have an American kestrel, bobolink, which both of these need and love grasslands and open areas. White-tailed deer, which you'll see everywhere pretty much in Pennsylvania. And we have a lot of bald eagles here at Middle Creek. We have a pair that I believe is nesting right now, but there's many others that are just here throughout the year. I saw a picture last year that was 16 bald eagles in one tree, which is insane to think about. Now I'm going to go over a few things for visiting Middle Creek, and some of these pictures are old actually. So here's our visitor center. We have an addition on the side of the building here for our Conservation Heritage Museum. I need to update a picture, but we're working on putting sort of a paver walkway around the side of the building that has a bunch of orange snow fencing around it right now and looks like it's under construction. So once that's nice and done and pretty, I need to update this slide. Inside, we have a lot of interactive educational displays for all ages. I see just as many children playing with some of these things as I do adults throughout the day. A lot of just kiosks that teach you about different species of birds and waterfowl. We show some of the different nesting structures we have here at Middle Creek. So whether it's wood ducks or mallards or Canada geese, we talk about how we sort of trap the ducks and put bands on them and study them. That's something I was doing this morning. I was out trying to grab some ducks out of traps. And we have a lot of taxidermied birds and mammals here as well. It just showcases the diversity we have at Middle Creek, not only for birds, but also mammals. We have otters here, we have beavers, we have fox, we have all kinds of different species that you can see. Mink, I see from time to time, are pretty neat. And then our new Conservation Heritage Museum, which one photo really doesn't do this justice because so many parts of the museum are different things. So we have rotating displays in here. We have things about prescribed fire, our game wardens, sort of the illegal wildlife trade and why the Game Commission came to be, as well as some things in the past that we thought were the correct way to do things and how science has changed and our understanding of wildlife has changed. So our management practices have changed accordingly to better meet the needs of wildlife and habitat. So a lot of people will say, when should I visit? Or people will even say, how many snow geese will be there 2 weeks from now on a Wednesday? So I don't know the answer to this. The snow geese do not tell me what their plans are, what they want to do. So we can only make sort of guesses based on what the numbers currently are and what the weather is going to kind of do. We generally say the peak is mid-February to mid-March. Last year it was President's Day, and I don't know when it is this year. President's Day is coming up. Our numbers were a lot higher a few weeks ago, and then they went down when it got cold and kind of went up again. But this year's been so bizarre with how warm it's been. January, it was almost open water on the lake the entire month, and last year it was frozen over the entire month. So this year's been just so warm in comparison. No snow, no ice. That's great for snow geese. If they see open water and fields that do not have snow on it, they can go there and feed on that. If it's frozen over, there's snow on the fields, they're not going to dig through the snow. They're not going to hang out on the ice very much. They're simply going to move further south into those areas where they can do that. Now, sometimes the peaks are really big here at Middle Creek because to our north it's frozen and here it's open. So they kind of get like a backlog of birds here at Middle Creek. But right now it's open to our north. So even less so, the peak here has the ability to keep moving forward. If they fly north and they see if there's ice somewhere, they'll turn around and go south. So they're kind of constantly trying to go north. And it's possible that this season they may not have even moved as far south for their migration just because it's, again, been so warm and open waters, food availability for them. So where are we located? I alluded to this earlier in the presentation. I like to joke we're in the middle of nowhere. The closest town is this little town called Kleinfeltersville, and to our south it is Hopeland. But you can see here, this county line sort of runs just through our property. I would say the majority of it is in Lancaster, but we have a good chunk in Lebanon as well. The turnpike is just off the map here to our south, but we're kind of almost equidistant from the cities of Lancaster, Lebanon, and Reading. And our address is 100 Museum Road, Stevens, PA. Sometimes it puts it in as Newmanstown. Both those towns are not that close to us compared to some others, but that's what our address says. So that's and what the GPS will say. Okay, what to bring if you're looking to see snow geese. So obviously spotting scopes, binoculars, cameras, anything you have like that, you can get a better view of the snow geese or capture those moments. Dress appropriately, like today it's raining, so umbrellas or rain gear, but good walking shoes or something you don't want to get wet. Depending on those varying conditions, it can be pretty windy here as well. We have a lot of signage here at Middle Creek. We ask you to follow that signage. We have areas that are closed to the public because we want to have wildlife be able to use that area and not get spooked or chased away, or especially during the breeding season, be able to successfully raise their young without being disturbed, especially by people or dogs or vehicles. I'd say bring a packed lunch. If you're going to be here for a little while, you know, we do have the visitor center, so you can either come here first and get some more information or go down to what our most popular spot is, which is called Willow Point. You know, stay hydrated as well. Plenty of water, even if it's cold out, you need to stay hydrated. And we have hiking trails here as well. We have 12 hiking trails. Some are like the Horseshoe Trail runs through the entire property and is a lot longer. And some are just 1.5 miles loop trails that are pretty easy. A few more tips. I sort of mentioned this earlier, snow geese roosting on the water overnight. So the best opportunity is to view a large amount of snow geese flying, which that picture I had earlier in the presentation sort of showcases. You're going to want to come at dawn or dusk, sunrise, sunset, however you want to refer to it as, because they're roosting on the water overnight. In the morning, the majority of them are going to fly to feed in the fields or continue moving north, or both. And you're seeing that huge eruption of birds taking off over the water and flying overhead. Again, I caution you not to look up with your mouth open. You never know. Now, the other tip is weekends can get pretty packed here. There's points where the weekends get so packed we're directing traffic. The parking lots are full and people are parking along the roads. So come during a weekday, but however, this year's been unique that the Saturdays recently, and it looks like this Saturday as well, or tomorrow, are like the coldest days of the week that we've had. So during the week, the other day or two, or today even, it's been 50s, 60s, 65 and sunny the other day. So again, it affects the people and the geese almost the same in this circumstance, where the weeks have been nice and popular and a lot of birds have been here, and the Saturdays have been a little colder with smaller crowds. So it changes every year, but generally, yeah, either way, those weekdays are always less trafficked. So more information here, and now we have a Facebook page, and there's going to be a QR code on the last slide for this. But we do have a web page on our website, which is just, you know, the website in general is pgc.pa.gov. And our webpage basically has all of our stuff going on for Middle Creek, all of our events, all of our maps, all of our hunting regulations. We post weekly updates on there. We sort of have a link that you can click that takes you to a page just on snow geese. And that is what our counts are, which we do every Tuesday and Friday. More viewing opportunities. We have a snow goose camera, like a live web camera, down at Willow Point that is playing at all times. So if you really have the urge to wake up at 2 in the morning and watch what's going on with the snow geese, you can do that. If you're looking to come out here in an hour or two and wondering what the conditions are, how many birds are on the water, you can go on there and view that camera. You might have heard of our black bear cameras that the Game Commission has, or the bald eagle cameras. It's the same thing with our snow goose camera on the same website that hosts that. So again, the website just has tons of resources, and a lot of that information We post events that we have going on here, our updates for snow geese that we can get out there a lot quicker. Some of our events aren't on our annual calendar, but we kind of just have them pop up and have them from time to time. So social media is a good way to get that sort of up to the minute information. So we do have a wildlife tour road, and I'm going to quickly go back here to our map of the project. We have a tour road that is open seasonally. So this opens March 1st. We're not at this point opening out on Saturdays. The purpose of that is we have a lot of wildlife, like I mentioned, that utilizes this area. You can't actually see the snow geese that well from this road because you can see there's a lot of fields and trees and islands and stuff blocking your view. The best point is, or the best place is Willow Point, which is right here. Parking area, short, sort of quarter of a mile, paved, asphalt, accessible, flat walk out to Willow Point. And the tour road here, once that opens March 1st, you can drive through here, and there's a lot of those grassland species you can see out there and flowers starting to bloom. But when snow geese are sometimes out in these fields, we have a lot of problems when this was open, was people go out there, they'd spook the snow geese, they'd leave the area. People would have dogs or dogs that weren't on leashes or vehicles that even hit some of the birds like tundra swans that were on the road. So we really, as the Game Commission, manage for wildlife first and foremost. And we want those resources to be available for everyone to view. We don't want people to sort of ruin that for everyone. So we keep that road closed. So if snow geese are out there, which they sometimes are, but not always, they can sort of feed and then come back to the water. Again, Willow Point, you can see them right up close, multiple birds really easily with the naked eye. You don't even need binoculars, but to get a much better view, I do recommend bringing those optics with you. So we have a QR code here that should still scan to our Facebook page. But if anyone has any questions, we will sort of move into that aspect of the presentation.
That was great, Brant. Thank you so much. I think we all appreciate the reminder not to look up with our mouths open when birds are flying over.
Right.
So we have a few questions from the audience. One is, you mentioned in the presentation, but would you review again? Why do we only see large flocks in the spring migration and not the fall?
Sure. So it could just be that they have different schedules that they're sort of leaving their breeding grounds. Assuming that they're laying eggs over a period of time, those birds that are able to fledge and leave the nest don't always necessarily happen at one time, whereas a lot of the birds that are sort of overwintering here on their wintering grounds are either juveniles or mature adults. So they're sort of ready to go, and they're eager to get up there into their breeding season. Weather does play a large role, and those family groups play a role as well. But I can't even say what the groups look like in the fall time because I'm never really along the coast to see that fall migration. That was always something that me as well. Like I was like, oh, like what's going on in the fall? How do they get down here? It's just that they're in a totally different area. But yeah, it's sort of just that biologically, there's a little bit of a difference between when they're coming south, when they're going north. You're assuming that at that time of year in the north, they're not as mature yet, or some of them aren't. Whereas, yeah, sort of in those wintering grounds, they're all ready to go. They're excited. They're like eager to get up there.
So do you have any suggestions or resources in a different area? We have a listener who recently moved from Southeast Pennsylvania, and they're near Lycoming County. So they're experiencing a new watershed and new viewing opportunities to explore. So what could they see near there? Where should they go?
Yeah, so in terms of public lands, I mean, if you're looking, it's going to depend on what you want to see. So obviously you're in a different ecosystem. You're a little further north, and there's going to be different species that you're going to be seeing there at different times of year. You won't have giant migrations like you do here at Middle Creek. But there's some different online resources I'm going to recommend. So what I kind of like using, and I use an app called iNaturalist where you can sort of take a picture of something. Seek is another option that is sort of more user-friendly. iNaturalist is more of a citizen science sort of thing. But you can look at a map in your area and see what is being posted where. And that gives you an idea of, oh, like there's these really cool wildflowers blooming here that I want to go check out, or this bird's been spotted here. If you're really into birding, eBird is sort of the way to go. I don't use eBird, but everyone else around me does. And what you can kind of do with that is people get daily updates about eBird, what's been spotted in the area. So let's say there's a really uncommon vagrant species, meaning they're typically in another area, but sometimes you get one around here. So for example, last summer we had a wood stork, which is a much more southern species, just hanging out here in Middle Creek for like 3 weeks. People post that on eBird. You can go on there and get that email update and see what's in your area and try to get out there and view that bird. So yeah, I would say it depends on what your specific interests are, but there's sort of crowdsourced online stuff to see that. And of course, there's resources online for different maps of public lands, whether it's DCNR or state parks, state forests, state game lands, different things that you can kind of just go out on your own and explore. And now that you're living in the area, see what's around there.
That sounds great. Now you brought this up, so I'm going to ask citizen science. Are there opportunities at Middle Creek for people to get involved there? Do you need extra help? What are you looking for?
Sure. So it's limited in certain circumstances, not others. So we have volunteers that do a lot of our native plant gardening around our visitor center, and with that sort of path that's going around, there's going to be more work that we need help with for that. We have a lot of hiking trails here, so we have people that do that. Obviously, those are not citizen science things. The only thing I can say we do have for that is constant is we have bluebird boxes here on the property. We probably have about 250 bluebird boxes. In fact, I just mapped all of them on GIS and I have it on my desk here. So that's all volunteer maintained. People have routes that they go check every other week. They have data sheets and they hand all that into me, and that eventually goes to Cornell, Project Nest Watch, I believe it is. So right now once someone retires from that program, I usually need someone to replace that. So if anyone's in here and stops at the visitor center and would like to fill out a volunteer form and would like to help with that, I sort of have like a backup list of people that can, or they help as alternates. And then once they take over route, they sort of already know what they're doing. We have duck banding opportunities here as well, bird banding opportunities. That's really limited. So you need to be someone that sort of has some training with hands-on with birds. And with avian influenza right now, we really limit sort of any volunteer access to that because we wear PPE. We kind of take certain precautions when we're handling these birds. So in normal times, yeah, we take volunteers out and do some duck banding, but right now we're sort of holding off on that.
So if somebody's interested, they should stop by Middle Creek, fill out a form, get in touch with you somehow. Okay.
Yeah, they can check out our website and email us. They can give us a call. But of course, usually volunteers are somewhat local. So I would recommend them stop in here and have a chat with us. If it's someone that lives pretty far away and really is only able to email us, they probably wouldn't be able to get in here too much to volunteer anyway.
You mentioned earlier that the waterfowl are game birds. What makes a bird a game bird?
Good question. So a game bird is almost sort of an old-fashioned term these days. So a game species is one that you're going after and hunting. So deer, elk, fur bearers are somewhat. Fur bearers is another almost old-fashioned term where it's bearing fur, right? So something that's trapped. Beavers, minks, otters, even. So all those game species are, we say, game and non-game. Game you can hunt with a license. And there's regulations for that. There's limits on what you can take. And non-game species are the ones you cannot hunt. So bald eagles, cardinals, mice, for example, that like a least shrew or something like that is not one that is considered a game species.
So as the birds migrate and they're traveling different areas, Middle Creek being one of their stops, are they eating different foods along the way? Are they looking for the same thing? What are they trying to find to eat on their trip?
Yeah, good question. So they sort of like open fields, grasslands, agriculture areas. So what you might consider corn stubble. So after corn is harvested, a lot of waterfowl like being in those fields and feeding on that corn. Snow geese love winter wheat. So a lot of farmers use that as a cover crop to help maintain their soil and the nutrients in the soil. Now, farmers sometimes don't like the snow geese because if there's so many of them, Canada geese sort of graze on the grass like a cow would almost. Snow geese are literally pulling that entire plant out by the roots and eating that whole thing. So it can cause damage to crops. But again, I've seen fields around here where the snow geese, it almost looks muddy after they're done because they've eaten so heavily on it. But the spring and summer come around and you never know they even fed on those fields. They're just green and lush. And I think that extra nutrients I referred to earlier sort of helps that process out as well.
So do you ever need to supplement food offerings for the birds at Middle Creek?
No, we don't feed any of our wildlife here.
So what is your favorite bird to observe at Middle Creek?
That's a good question. I was I always joke that my favorite birds are Brants because we share a name, although that's not what I'm named after. However, they're more of a sort of coastal species, more open areas. So I have never actually seen one, and we've never had one here at Middle Creek during my time. I guess you could say some of the songbirds are pretty neat. There's a lot of warblers. The bobolinks are really neat. That the first one I ever saw was working here at Middle Creek, just a really unique looking grassland bird that have a pretty cool call. So I'll just say bobolink. Plus, it's fun to say their name.
That's true. It is a good name. One of our listeners has seen snow geese at Rehoboth Beach several years in December. So that would be the opposite migration. Correct?
Yeah, they'd likely be wintering there along the coast in those open waters. Now they might move just a little north there and then start to go overland, but yeah, I'm pretty certain that would be a prime overwintering location for them.
A good place to spend the winter.
Yes.
So what type of conservation is going to be needed to make sure that we always have snow geese and other waterfowl?
Good question. So I referred earlier that they're sort of overpopulated. There's a lot of them. So it's important that hunting is an important part of controlling them. Predators in the area are vital. So a lot of people are sometimes concerned or wary of predators, whether it be the American marten or coyotes or species that are no longer here, such as wolves and mountain lions. But really, those are important species that are helping to control them. When there's a lot of snow geese, sometimes they're on land feeding. Injured ones or older ones that can't really make the migration, they can get picked off by those predators. And that's an important control for the health of the population and their numbers. But on the flip side of things, they're very successful because we have a lot of agriculture. If we ever get to the point where we lose a lot of agriculture due to housing developments or commercial developments such as warehouses or like strip malls being put in, large parking lots, the more and more of that you lose, the less those snow geese can sustain their migration. We have a lot of agriculture here around Middle Creek. We have some food plots on the property, but we've been switching a lot to forbs and native grasses. If we lose that, the snow geese either might not be as numerous, their migration might not be as numerous or not as significant here at Middle Creek. You won't see them here in as large numbers. So having that agriculture in the surrounding areas is absolutely vital. Not only for us, because we get our food from those areas, but those snow geese that stop on the way as well.
This has been terrific. Brant, what would you like the audience to remember from today's program about Middle Creek spring waterfowl migration?
Sure. My biggest takeaway or advice for that is, we welcome you to visit Middle Creek. It can get a little crazy here at some time. So really just pay attention to that information that's going out there, paying attention to the signage, sort of being respectful and responsible when you come to visit. And then if you do all that, you're going to have a great time and everyone around you is going to have a great time. We get a lot of positive feedback about people that are here for the first time and how amazed they are by everything. So really, yeah, come on out, have a fun time and get to see a lot of this wildlife. You might vacation out in Yellowstone or these other places where these roads you can pull over and watch wildlife, but you can actually do that right here in Pennsylvania and right here at Middle Creek.
Thank you so much for being with us today and for your presentation. And thank you to the audience for your questions. We hope the audience will join us again for another Learn at Lunchtime program. Please visit our webpage for more information and to sign up. Thank you again to everybody for your participation.